Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Sorry for closing the previous audio for some technical issues. Let me get back again to the topic. When we are talking about the relationship with the legislature, the relationship between the bureaucrats or the administrators and the legislatures, we said that the legislators are actually trying to exercise some kind of control over the bureaucrats. I'm going to explain three examples through which, or three mechanisms through which the legislatures or the parliament can have some kind of control over the administrative agencies. The first type, we said it's called legislative veto, which means it's a kind of a provision in the law giving a veto for the parliament that says any actions proposed by the executives or the administrative agencies, they have to get back to the parliament for approval or disapproval within 30 to 90 days. We said it's a kind of a provision of certain laws, like if you are having a law or a policy that's for making a new highway or something, or a new program, if any changes to happen to that program, they have to get back and get the approval of the parliament before making such a changes. And why we have such a kind of law? And does it apply to all types of laws? Of course not. It doesn't apply to all types of laws, but it applies to specific program, specific laws where the parliament see that it's very important that they get to know about any changes and approve it in advance of the implementation of this program. So they do not leave it to the discretionary power of the bureaucrats to adapt to change. So they have to get back again to the parliaments to approve or disapprove that change or that policy. And that's why, of course, and again, I'm repeating, it does not apply to all types of laws. It applies to specific issues where the parliament sees that their role is very important, then they have to approve. The second type, it's called sunset laws. Sunset laws is actually laws that's based on the assumption that some government programs should be periodically terminated, and they cannot continue, but only after a careful evaluation about their effectiveness and after a specific vote of the parliament. Again, for the sunset laws and some laws that require some programs cannot continue, and they have to be terminated, and they will continue only if after they make a careful evaluation of their programs to check they are really effective and efficient, and they again give a specific vote by the parliament whether to continue that program or to terminate it. That types of laws actually aim to have a kind of a careful evaluation of the program at some point in the future. However, there are many problems associated with such type of laws. First, that it has a big cost for the evaluations, and at the same time, it's going to be a big burden on the legislatures and their staff if all programs are to be periodically evaluated. Okay, in deep details. That's going to be a lot of burden. It requires a lot of time and effort from the parliamentarians. And at the same time, it challenges out the assumption that some programs already has to be continued. And I'm sure that some of you are now asking, why they are asking about, why they are calling for a periodic evaluation? Isn't that evaluation is actually a stage of the public policy process? When you make any policy or a new law, they have to be evaluated, right? That's why that was actually one of the problems associated with it, that it's actually challenges that most programs are reviewed periodically anyway through the evaluation stage of the policy process, and already highly ineffective programs are to be eliminated without having a sunset provisions. So these are some of the problems associated with such types of laws. However, this law still exists in some areas. A third mechanism through which the legislator exerts some kind of control over the bureaucrats, it's called sunshine laws. Sunshine laws means it's a law that forces or requires various agencies, especially regulatory agencies, to conduct business in public view. Conducting business in public view. What does it mean? It means that because certain issues are very important to the public, so these organizations have to be open to the public. Maybe their meetings themselves must be open to the public. Members of the public can attend such meetings. And they might give the people a notice about such meetings must be given in advance. And maybe minutes of the meetings must be taken. So that sunshine laws require that certain types of issues, certain points, when they are talking about it, the government agencies have to make it transparent to the public through their involvement, make it open, through their attendance, through taking minutes and post it to the public and so on. So that's why from the sunshine, we're talking about working in public view, while compared to the sunset, we're talking about termination of the program after periodic evaluation. Okay, so these are 3 examples of the mechanisms that the legislatures can use to have some kind of control over the administrative agencies. What else can the legislature do in order to make sure that the bureaucrats are accountable, to make sure that the bureaucrats are actually implementing policies as it intended? There are 2 other ways. The first one is called oversight, and the second one is called casework, through which legislator can exercise supervision over the bureaucrats. Oversight means, you know that in all parliaments there are a number of committees that the role that is actually to oversee the activities of the government agencies and how they relate with other levels of the government. And each one, of course, oversee on its area of interest. Like, for example, you might have a committee that's working on transportation issues, or a committee that's working on social welfare issues, or so on. So that committee will be actually looking at the government work, at the government activities in relation to the transportation issues. Do they implement the policies do you implement the laws the way that we have framed them? Do they face problems? That's why you can say hearings. I'm sure that you have heard about the word hearings. When the parliament is conducting a hearing for one of the departments of the government, because they want to exercise their oversee role and see whether the government has actually done its work the way it intended to be or not. However, there are some problems that are associated with the oversight role of the parliament. First problem is that many legislators have actually little interest in oversight. Not so many legislators are interested in oversight role. They are more focusing on policy issues that will build their reputation in policy arena than compared to oversight, because they want to build their reputation, because they want their constituent to know about them so that they can re-elect them again. So policy issues actually make more propaganda and repetition to parliamentarians compared to the oversight role. So that's why you can find that many legislators have actually little interest in oversight. We have to notice also that the interest for oversight can vary from time to time. Of course, it will increase during the time of crisis, or when new programs or new policies are coming from agency, so they might exercise their oversight role might increase, or when members of the parliament feel that some agency was not that responsive to the constituent, then their oversight role might increase, they might call for a hearing, and so on. Another condition when you're talking about oversight is that when members of the parliament have a high confidence in a leader, in a public leader, they mostly tend to agree to their policies, and their motivation for oversight actually decrease. Why? Because they trust that leader, they have a confidence in that leader, so they don't see that it's required to have a big oversight over him. And of course, vice versa. When their trust is low in that leader, or they feel like um, they do not trust him or have a low confidence in them, in that leader, then their motivation for oversight will increase. Okay? Then, the second type of legislative supervision, it's called casework. Casework here means that the legislators actually, in fact, interact with the public agencies on individual basis on behalf of their constituents. So the legislators play a role to interact with the public agencies on individual basis on behalf of their constituents. Why they do so? In order to help them, the individuals or some groups, when they need assistance with access to the government agencies. Like if you want to do some I'm thinking legal tasks, and there are a lot of complexities or red tapes and so on. So you might ask for the legislator for help. So that legislator already have an access to the administrative agencies, so he might help you in that case. And through that casework, you will be able to follow up whether the bureaucrats are actually doing the jobs efficiently or not, based on your casework, based on your experience, through which you are trying to help one of your constituents or something, or helping one individuals to get access. So when you are helping him, you will get to see and you get to supervise the administrators who are doing that task. Okay, so here, to sum it up for the legislator role and the relationship with the bureaucrats, we talked about three different mechanisms through which the legislators can control or can have some kind of control over the bureaucrats through legislative veto, sunset law, and sunshine law. It's just required for you to understand the definitions and know the definitions of each one of them. And also through the supervision, the legislators can exercise some kind of supervision over the bureaucrats through two ways: oversight, okay, and we give examples of hearings, and second is through casework. Okay, so by this part we have we can put an end for that chapter that's about the political context of public administration. So to sum it up, so far in that chapter, we have covered definitions of public policy, and we understood what is public policy, and we took different definitions, and then why do you call it public? Does it affect everyone with the same degree or not? We have discussed this in class. And then why actually study public policy, why it's important for us. And then we moved on to talk about the different 5 main stages of the public policy process, starting from agenda setting to strategy to policy formulations, policy legitimation, policy implementation, and policy evaluation. And we have spoken about the role of the bureaucrats in each of these stages. And then we talked about the 4 types of policies. We differentiated between regulatory policy, distributive, redistributive, and constituent. And we talked about regulatory. Remember always the keywords: you regulate to limit the actions of certain groups to protect the general public. And we differentiated between 2 types of regulatory: comparative regulatory and protective regulatory. And then we talked about distributive policies, about the allocation of resources, okay, and then we said that it's the most common type of policies that the government is engaged in. Then we moved on to talk about redistributive policy. We're talking about redistribution of wealth, those who have not, winners and losers, okay, and we end up the types of strategies by talking about the constituent policies that tend to benefit the public in general, as example, foreign policy, defense policy, anti-terrorism policy, and so on. Okay, and for these types of policies, and then we moved on to talk about the sources of the bureaucratic power. what were the sources of the bureaucratic power. And we spoke about the external sources of power and internal sources of power. And we differentiated between these types of power, and we said the more the more sources of power you have, of course, the more powerful you are, whether you combine between the internal and external sources of power. And then we moved to talk about the relationship between the legislatures and the bureaucrats, and how they can exercise some kind of control and some kind of supervision over the bureaucrats. From this, we can see, I believe now you can see that how it is complex, the world of public administrators. It's not easy. It's hard. They are involved in the different stages of the policy making process. They have to deal with the public, and at the same time, they have to do their job in an efficient and effective way. At the same time, they have to be accountable to the legislators who are actually supervising their work to check they are implementing the policies the way it should be or not. They have to, so it's very complicated. They have to, it's not easy to do a policy. It's not easy to implement it. It's not easy to evaluate it. So their word of public administrator is very complex. And we have to understand it carefully in order to be able to deal and understand the different types of policies and what's going on around us. For your study, please, and I'm repeating it again, listen to the audio and read the slides, and at the same time read the book. You have to study from the book. The audio and the slides will not be enough. Read the book, read the examples in the book. It has more details. Try to look for the cases and answer the cases. And please send me, again, I'm repeating that I will be posting on the Moodle how you should be contacting me in case there's something that you didn't understand or a question that you're looking for an answer for. This will be ending our for this chapter, and I hope you're doing great, and please stay safe, and see you, or what, not seeing you. Hopefully we'll be able to meet you again, but at least let's say we're gonna meet for the next audio, inshallah. Good luck and stay safe. Bye bye.